right, welcome to CHIRLA TV. I'm Pedro Trujillo, and today I'm joined by a first-timer here, right? So we have here Guadalupe Martinez, known by her friends as Lupita, right? How are you?
I'm really good. I'm excited to be here and share space with you all today.
Great, welcome. Lupita is the CDN statewide organizer at CHIRLA, working with youth, college students, and different immigrant youth across California. Lupita, tell us, since it's your first time here on the show, how did you get to know about CHIRLA and how did you apply? What was that process like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, very excited to be here and especially working with our youth. So my background comes from working with specifically high school students. And at the high school I was working at, I specifically worked with undocumented students. However, as we know, the current students that I was working with, they could no longer apply to DACA, or there was no other policies that they could apply to, so that when they graduated after college, they could be able to work here. So I felt like my hands were tied, where like I couldn't help them. So I wanted to do policy work and also build leaders beyond the classroom. And that's where CHIRLA came in, where y'all not only, well, now we, because I'm part of the family, but we work on policies as well. So that's what I really wanted to focus on, youth policies, to help them advance in the dreams that they wanted to conquer here.
So talk a little bit about the population that you serve.
Yeah, absolutely. So my population particularly is college students. So anything from a freshman, a transfer, all the way up to their senior year in college. So that is the population I primarily work with, but we also work with students who have already graduated from college. So if like when it comes to looking for a job, or they're already in those professional shoes, but need a little help navigating it, because a lot of the students that we work with, they're first generation. So they're also not only the first generation of graduating, receiving a bachelor's, but also moving on in that professional world. And it's a whole world that we sometimes don't know how to navigate. I'm still learning how to navigate it, but we also guide them in that process as well.
Let's take a step back here and learn a little bit more about you and your family, y'all's migration story, if you would like to share.
Yeah, of course. So I was born and raised in South Whittier, but my family migrated from Aguascalientes, Mexico. So that's where my roots come. Super proud when they tell me, where are you from? I'm like, Aguascalientes. But so I do come from a mixed status family. I have two older brothers. They are much older, much older than me. But we came here with, you know, that same thing that everyone talks about, the American dream, right? So it definitely comes with a lot of struggles and learning how to navigate like this like new life here in the US. But thankfully, by the grace of God, we've like managed to, my parents helped us like just keep telling us, me specifically, like graduate from high school, go to college, get a good education. And, you know, from inculcating that for me, that's what also stems to being part of the CHIRLA family, working with our youth, so I can also help them navigate and not go through the difficulties that I had to go through, and my families too, but help those families navigate and surpass those loopholes and struggles.
And where'd you go to school?
I went to UC Irvine. So our mascot is an anteater. So whenever we say we're from UC Irvine, we go, no, you did the llama. It's an anteater. So you have to pull it back.
Gotta pull it back.
Yes, yes. So I graduated with a degree in criminology and psychology. So that is my background. I went to high school. Shout out to California High School. I went to high school in Whittier.
Yeah, it's amazing that we get to hear from someone like yourself, hija de inmigrantes, that gets to pursue their education here in the United States. And just like you said it, right, with a lot less barriers and a lot more opportunities. And you had the privilege of being born here, so even the whole process was even facilitated further because of your status too. But it's just so great to have people like you doing this work, organizing the community, giving back in that way to folks who may be lost, or just wondering what they're going to do next. And just for the folks that are watching us from their television, just know that we're going to dive into a little bit of a conversation around what are Dream Resource Centers, the campaign around Dream Resource Centers, the services they offer, and how you can get in communication with one as well. So that's today's topic. As folks are going into college, they're asking a lot of questions. Well, we have some answers here. So stay tuned. Welcome back to CHIRLA TV. I'm here with Lupita Martinez, CDN statewide organizer, who is talking to us about, well, we're just going to start talking about Dream Resource Centers and what that is. So what's a Dream Resource Center, Lupita?
Yeah, so a Dream Resource Center, most of the universities, and I want to talk about specifically California because it does look very different in other states, but to focus here in California. So most, if not all, universities from UCs, Cal States, and community colleges, they do have a Dream Resource Center. So it's practically a safe space for our undocumented students that are attending that college or university, for them to not only build community, again, feel safe, but also the resource aspect of it, which is, sometimes providing scholarships, sometimes it's providing their own academic advisor to specifically guide them in their college process, amongst legal services as well, and other things that arise for each Dream Resource Center, which I would like to mention that they're structured a little bit differently, but they all have the same common goal to serve our undocumented student on campus.
Right. So for undocumented students that go on from high school to college, that they have someone to go to, right?
Exactly.
And so for this to become a reality, if you can talk just briefly about what that took, what it was like, so that these Dream Resource Centers could be established.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't imagine a time where there wasn't a Dream Resource Center, but unfortunately there was a time where our undocumented students not only not had financial aid to go to college, but in addition to that, they didn't have a safe space on campus. So thankfully, organizations like CHIRLA and other sister organizations, partner organizations, through youth activism, which is why youth activism and spending time on helping them flourish into young leaders is so we can have things like this, the Dream Resource Center. So I would like to mention that Pedro is a champion of making sure that we do have Dream Resource Centers here in our universities of California. So it was a policy, it was a lot of rallies, a lot of community effort together to get those Dream Resource Centers to be passed and have them in each college and university. But again, it took a lot of community, it took a lot of unity within our students and activism to make sure that, these universities and colleges were open to having Dream Resource Centers.
Yeah, when I was an undocumented student at Cal State Northridge, we didn't really think about that space as that's something that we needed at the time. We were too busy worrying about paying for school and figuring out how we won, at that time, California Dream Act. That was kind of the first step before these other steps, which include Dream Resource Center, Dream Loan Programs, which are other benefits for undocumented students in California. But yeah, for us, the first step and the big hurdle was the California Dream Act. I do remember, though, that when we did bring it up towards the end of my schooling at Northridge, was that the administrators would brush us aside, They wouldn't take us serious, there wasn't a real need. But I'm glad that we've, through the organizing, we've made a difference.
Exactly, yeah. And I do want to add on, if y'all don't know the term, what the California Dream Act is, it's financial aid for our undocumented students here in the state of California to apply to and potentially receive that financial support to go to college. So again, it's called the California Dream Act, and it's for our undocumented students. So there is aid here for our students in California to receive to go to college.
Para los papás que nos están viendo en español, solamente diciendo aquí lo que comentó Lupita, de que los estudiantes inmigrantes que van a ir que están en la preparatoria y quieren ir a la universidad pública en California pueden recibir ayuda financiera por medio de la Acta del Sueño de California. Esta es una ley estatal que nos ha dado, ya tenemos varios años, ya casi van a ser 10 años de implementación para poder darle ayuda financiera a jóvenes inmigrantes que quieran estudiar otra vez en colegios comunitarios, los Cal States que le llaman, o UCs, Universidad de California. Bueno, pues vamos a continuar esta conversación aquí con nuestra amiga Lupita, que es la organizadora estatal del California Dream Network. para aprender un poquito más de qué es lo que se está trabajando para la lucha de los inmigrantes, estudiantes inmigrantes. Regresamos.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
We're back at CHIRLA TV discussing some opportunities for immigrant youth in the policy level, at the advocacy level. So Lupita, talk to us about what is it that the DREAM resource centers are fighting for, or more specifically, what is your group of students, what is the California Dream Network interested in pursuing this coming year?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Pedro. So there's a couple of things that, the students that I work with are interested in regards to like the different DRCs. So one is the expansion of AB 540. And to connect the dots it is parallel with the California Dream Act. So students have to qualify for AB 540, those requirements, before they apply, move to the next step.
So they could be eligible.
Exactly. Eligible, keyword. Thank you for that. So what we're trying to do is, because there are some eligibility requirements, what we're trying to do is expand those eligibility requirements. So more of our students can apply for the California Dream Act. So that's something we're pushing for at a state level. And then in addition to that, what we're also pushing for is, DACA. We talk about DACA, and that's something that's continuously being talked about. So our students are very much interested in that too, of like what's happening around DACA, because we need that protection for not only our students, but as our students also advocate for their parents as well. And CHIRLA as a whole, we advocate for everyone to be included within DACA. So we're still fighting for that protection for all as well. And one of also my favorite things that we're specifically working on, because as we're trying to build an equitable education for our students here, is the expansion of Dream Resource Centers, so also known as DRCs, specifically in private universities. So this is a time where we're calling out our private universities because they have the funds to expand, to have a safe space also for our undocumented students. So we're also pushing for work there as well. And I'm so excited to see some of the wins that we're going to get for this upcoming year.
Yeah, so important that you mentioned that, because we do see that the state laws that get passed, they impact state-run universities and colleges. So we're talking about the three systems. But the state laws that impact those public universities don't impact private universities. Exactly. Why is that?
Yeah, so the main reason for that is that they're a private institution. They have the discrepancy. Well, they're, privately funded, but in addition to being privately funded, they have the discrepancy to, do whatever it is that they want with their money as well, where they're going to allocate it. So that's why we've been pushing for some of that money to also be funded for our undocumented students, because we do have a population of undocumented students in these Ivy Leagues, these private institutions. So it's time that they also meet our students in what their needs are to be successful at a private institution.
Yeah, it's so important that happens. I know that a few students who have gone through those institutions, and they've often mentioned how alienating it can be.
Exactly.
The experience can be challenging for them, and mainly because there's less undocumented students in those spaces, which makes it even more difficult to get the support you need, because it's like, who do you go to for advice, right? Like, have you heard any other things from other students?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the dot. Specifically for students, there's less people that look like them, that have the background as them. So it's really hard to relate and, build community when some of the other students are not going to the same struggles that they particularly are. But how you mentioned, it is a little bit harder to get like the ball and movement rolling. And that's exactly where we, as our department at CDN, where we come in, because we have other youths from public universities that attend Cal State's, UC's, community college, that are ready to support also our undocumented students who are at private institutions, to ensure that they also get the resources they need, because it goes beyond, right, just the resources. Now we're also talking about mental health, which is a different topic for another day, right? But it does affect in like how they execute and how they evolve in this space.
And the Dream Resource Centers themselves, or the people running them, are the ones anticipating what are the needs of students, talking to the student, and having those programs and events, workshops ready to support students, right, in their experience.
Exactly.
Really amazing stuff that we're covering here. We're going to continue here at CHIRLA TV, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
Bienvenidos a CHIRLA TV. Regresamos aquí con Lupita. Estamos platicando sobre cómo llegar, cómo recibir información, ya que los jóvenes inmigrantes llegan a universidades donde sí hay apoyo, sí hay personas que tienen conocimiento de recursos y otros programas. Entonces, Lupita, si yo soy un estudiante que apenas voy llegando a la universidad, mi primera semana en la universidad, he escuchado de estos centros de recursos para jóvenes inmigrantes, where do I go? Who do I talk to?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I first want to say that we're a resource too. So like we know how to navigate those spaces. So we have CDN organizers all across California. So if you contact us, we're able to also support you and help you navigate that as well. But being on campus, there's many ways you can find out. There is EOP. You can go ahead and contact EOP and they can direct you. Other resources as well. Most universities also have like something similar to multicultural centers. So you can also reach out to them to direct you.
Maybe the DRC is in the multicultural center.
Yes, actually it's pretty common for that to happen, for the multicultural centers to host some type of Latino club or some type of undocumented safe space. But in addition to that too, student life and leadership, all campuses have student life and leadership, and normally they have rosters. It's very interesting because I myself have had the opportunity to actually go in person and visit these different DRCs, and it can get a little complicated to find them. I have been in spaces where it's hard to like look for them, like they'll give you a number, but you can always like ask around like different offices and like they'll help you navigate you. As long as you don't stop searching, like keep searching, because you'll eventually find it once you're on campus.
So Lupita, where else can I go online to just do some research on finding these DRCs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always like to talk about Google.
Yeah.
Google is
Talk
like
about Google. Everyone name drops Google any chance they can.
Yeah, so normally
Google
a lot exactly, Google. I need to get a mug that says Google it. But for the most part, Google is like a great resource. Like you can literally type in Cal State LA Dream Resource Center, and you can even add location or contact, and it normally pops up. But just recently, you were also telling me about this great resource.
Yeah, the Campaign for College Opportunities, came across it, and it's really, really helpful. Has a map of different universities with DRCs, so really handy. I think it was really easy to use. I think they use Google Maps now that we're talking about Google.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, so I think that's something that folks can tap into. Like they really have it just at their disposal. They can call different schools. I think it's now part of like if you want to look for a university, it's not only about visiting the university, but also visiting the resource that's there, which I think we skipped on that. You've been to a couple of Dream Resource Centers. What are some differences or similarities that you've seen in these spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes the way that the Dream Resource Center is structured can be a little different. And so maybe some resource centers have like open office hours where students can just go in at a random time and ask questions. Other times, like they have social events for students to build community. And that looks different for depending on the capacity, because how you said, some are small and some are big. So it also depends on like the staffing and capacity they have to, assist all of our undocumented students. So it definitely varies by Dream Resource Center. But I also would love to plug in that on top of the Dream Resource Centers, there's also a lot of students who have built their own undocumented clubs. So that's also very important for our, anyone who's viewing us that there's also clubs as well where you can build community, and they also have amazing resources as well. Like there's really quickly just to tap into one, there's one particular club, Sapphire, that also helps students with like professional development, like how to get into research. So they also on their own or through guest speakers, like they also build like their own community, and I love to see that on top of, you know, what DRCs have to offer.
It's my favorite type of organizing is grassroots organizing, when the people know what they want and they go out and get it. So thank you so much, Lupita. It's been a pleasure having you here, join us for the first time. Hopefully you can come back to join us for other topics in the future. And how'd you feel?
I feel good. I feel very happy that this information's like being out, but I think more importantly, también hablo español. So si me quieren contactar, también hablo español. Yo sé que hablé puro inglés, pero puedo decir lo mismo español en una llamada si me contactan o quieren saber más de nuestros recursos.
Ok, llamen a Lupita. Nos vemos todos. Hasta la próxima.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?